This episode of I Work For Him is sponsored by SaferNet, Patriot Mobile, and the U.S. Christian Chamber 2026 Expo, found online at swc2026.com, code I Work For Him. You've tuned in to I Work For Him, the voice of collaboration for the faith and work movement.
We are your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenbergen. Our mission is to inspire every workplace believer to recognize their workplace as their ministry place, where they work with God every day. What can that look like in your workplace? Well, let's find out right now.
Over the years, we've interviewed hundreds of authors, thousands of everyday workers living out their faith in their work, but never have we interviewed a lawyer who wrote a book that reflects the antithesis of how we all view lawyers. So much did this book catch my attention, it also kept me riveted to the pages all the way to the end. The book is called Servant Lawyer, and the author is attorney and professor Robert Bob F. Cochran, Jr. So incredible is this thinking that he reflects in his book, I had to have Bob on to talk about this revolutionary understanding of the kingdom role of an attorney. Throw out everything about your thinking about what a lawyer does and how they should act, and open your mind to the endless possibilities of the kingdom role of lawyers. Bob Cochran, welcome to I Work For Him.
Thanks so much, Jim and Martha. It's nice to be with you.
Bob, tell us about your journey. We want to hear about your journey in making Jesus your Lord and your Savior.
Yeah, well, I was raised in a Christian home, I think a wonderful Christian home, but like a lot of preachers' kids.
Oh, you're a PK. Oh, boy.
I am. I ran away from the faith, wanted to discover the world on my own. So through high school and college, pretty much running away from God. And then I got to law school. I went to law school for not such good reasons, a pursuit of status. I just found that that world and that pursuit to be empty, started re-examining my faith. And I guess discovering C.S. Lewis, him speaking to my mind. I'd had plenty of wonderful lessons for the heart, but Lewis speaking to my mind was a big part of that. And I guess it was a search for meaning and truth. So in the midst of my first year of law school, not really a great time to have a crisis of faith, committed my life to him and been trying to follow him since that time.
But C.S. Lewis could frame an argument better than almost anybody who's ever lived. I'm sure maybe Socrates was good at it too, but C.S. Lewis was so good at it, and he could speak at all levels. He could speak at simple levels, and he could speak at exquisite levels. So I could see how he touched your life.
So I'm curious, because you said you wanted to become a lawyer, maybe because of the prestige and the return, right, that might come from that. After you really made a commitment to Christ, obviously you've continued on with that education. So you must have then decided to really be committed to becoming a lawyer. Is that correct?
Well, I kind of went back and forth with the idea of going to seminary, becoming a minister, or sticking with law. But I had really an ever expanding view of Christ and what Christ is doing in the world and what I might do. And then really also just through, I think mystical insights, circumstances, a number of things kept me in law. And it really wasn't until after a few years of law practice that I looked around and I didn't have this nagging sense that I ought to be a minister anymore. I really came to see law practice as a vocation, as a way of following Christ.
So talk to us about how that really became, your faith became interwoven in your law practice. What was that journey like? Because you've decided that they should be interwoven, but we could talk to 1,000 attorneys and they would say law is law and Jesus is Jesus. They don't have anything to do with each other. You're saying they should be interwoven.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd point to three influences. One was a group of Christian law students who've remained among my best friends for 50 years. I still meet with several of them weekly in a Zoom Bible study. They've encouraged me. Helped me to develop this vision of a servant lawyer, and hopefully I've encouraged them as well. Secondly, I got involved in a church that introduced me to John Calvin and some of his thinking and writing about law and about the world generally, and even about law practice. You may know that he was a lawyer before he became a Christian author and pastor, and so he had thought a lot about it. And one of his great sayings that had an impact on me is, "All the world should be a theater for the glory of God." And so it was that kind of a vision that had an impact with me. I tended to separate the world around me from my Christian faith, but then envisioning Jesus as being Lord of all of life, Lord of all of the world, was a great vision. And then I had a professor named Tom Schaefer who had written a book called On Being a Christian and a Lawyer. He had just been the dean at Notre Dame Law School and had come to University of Virginia, where I went to law school as a professor, and he was really a mentor to me throughout my law practice and then going into law teaching. Strong influence with me. So really, all three of those things.
But there had to have been a lot of pushback because you're in a world. I mean, I won't go to any of the analogies for attorneys. We'll try to be very nice today to the attorneys. But you're in a world that doesn't really emulate the characteristics of Jesus. So when you decided that you had a different perspective on what it really meant to be an attorney, there had to be attorneys around you who were also Jesus followers who thought you were crazy.
Well, I guess I'll push back a little bit. I don't think.
Fair enough.
I think attorneys tend to get the reputation they have because of what I would consider to be a few bad apples. Yes, yes, there are attorneys and a lot who are like that and deserve the reputation that they have. I do think most attorneys are trying to abide by professional responsibility rules. Some of the aggressiveness of attorneys is part of representing their clients, and I don't excuse that as something that's wrong. I see it as part of the system, and a system that's developed over the decades and has recognized that it's really in confrontation between ideas that judges and juries can, I think, often get a sense of the truth of things. So I'll defend my profession generally. There aren't many Christian lawyers that think in terms of Jesus sitting right beside them as they're interviewing clients, Jesus sitting right beside them as they argue before court. I think we should view ourselves more that way. But I didn't find that I got pushback so much as, that's an interesting idea. Okay. I need to merge those two aspects of my life, or think more in terms of what it would mean for Jesus to be Lord of all of my life.
It's a good word. Many people struggle to learn what Bob's talking about, allowing our faith to be interwoven in our work. And to help you with that shift in thinking, consider joining the U.S. Christian Chamber of Commerce, uschristianchamber.com, where you could surround yourself with other Christ followers learning to live like Jesus in the workplace. The resources and networking opportunities even include an expo in April of 2026, where Martha and I will serve as the MCs. The link to the Expo is swc2026.com, and the code I work for him will get you a discount, and we'll see you there.
So, Bob, I want to ask you a question that maybe not a lot of people have even wondered about this question. But what do you believe is the kingdom purpose of a lawyer? Because you have some thoughts on this.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, I think like all the things that we do, what we do should be a reflection of love of God, our love of God, but more specifically, for most of us, our focus is on love of neighbor. And I think there's a couple of ways in which being an attorney is a way of showing love to your neighbor. Most specifically, most immediately, is going to be showing love to your clients. My mentor and friend I mentioned earlier, Tom Schaefer, he taught legal ethics, and he would sort of, with a wink in his eye, ask people to define the client. And lawyers have all sorts of technical ways, is there a contract? Has money been paid? I mean, there's all sorts of things you might wrestle with. But Tom would say that for the Christian, the definition of a client is this person God has brought into my life.
It's your neighbor.
Yeah, yeah. And, when you hear that knock at the door, or you get that irritating phone call, to be reminded that this is a person God has brought into my life is an important one. And you're dealing with people typically, or at least quite often, at the most stressful time of their lives. You may be used to the legal system as an attorney, but it's a whole new experience for them, whether it's business related, death of a parent or a child, or they've got criminal cases brought against them, or they've been sued. Those are times when to have a caring person with them and somebody who will speak for them. Oftentimes people don't know what to say. They're not very articulate. They don't know the law. And so having someone speak for them is a very important way of loving them. But also being, a caring person. So many people envision lawyers in the way you've described them, and it'll be a surprise if you find one who loves and cares for you. And not every Christian and not every attorney is comfortable with this, but I would very often in cases when we were faced with high stress say, we've got a challenge in front of us. Can I say a prayer for us?
Awesome.
And I never had anybody resist or say no. Sometimes I got to look like, man, I don't believe this, but we need every bit of help.
Yeah,
that's right.
And I would just say a prayer and have the sense that God was right there.
I love that.
That's good. We're talking today with Bob Cochran. He wrote this book, The Servant Lawyer, Facing the Challenges of Christian Faith and Everyday Law Practice. We're showing it here out here on YouTube. We recommend that. We'll have the links in the show notes out on the podcast. But if you're an attorney, or you got a friend that's an attorney, or you're using an attorney, give them this book as a gift, just from you, with our recommendation, because in there, it gives them a whole paradigm shifting look at the practice of law.
So I love that you go ahead.
Let me just say one other thing in response to the earlier question, which was, how do we serve God in law practice? I mentioned loving our neighbor and the specific client that we're serving, but I also want to highlight the role that lawyers play within our system as advocates for people. So the advocacy system is designed the hope is that justice will emerge when lawyers make arguments for each client, and then a judge and a jury maybe hears those arguments. But also within our commercial system. Oftentimes, lawyers are representing clients, and you're negotiating deals. I mean, so many of the deals that are done, lawyers involved. Lawyers anticipate potential problems. They draft documents in ways they're going to avoid those. And I think they smooth an economic system that creates jobs, creates products for people. And I think that's a very important role that lawyers serve, that often they lose sight of when
Sure.
they're busy just stuck with documents. The people that benefit on down the way from their work.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of our occupations, we forget the influence that we have over the people that we are working with. So if you're listening today, you're not necessarily a lawyer. You haven't had to work with lawyers on, doing deals and things like that. But wherever you are working, you are a person of influence for the kingdom. And so to take that responsibility with you, Jim, we just interviewed somebody for another podcast talking about bringing our genuine self. If Christ has truly changed us, then we bring him with us into everything that we do, which is such a huge part of our jobs, no matter what our occupation is. So, Bob, I want to ask you this question. How do you, I don't even know if balance is the right word, but how do you navigate when the world does have a preconceived expectation of what an attorney does and is and how they act versus how God expects you to be as his son who is an attorney?
Yeah. Well, I would say that it's not a balance at all.
Mm-hmm.
I would say you look first and foremost and really only at what it is that God wants you to do in a particular circumstance, and you go that route, even if it might get you might ruffle some feathers, or might even get you into trouble. I mean, I think standing up for faith, following Christ, even if the world around you, and maybe under some circumstances, even the law would push you in an unchristian direction. That being said, I've got a lot of respect for the law, as you can already sense. Particularly in the United States, I've got a lot of respect for our commercial system. I think before you challenge it, you should think long and hard. But Christ should be your guiding light. What is good for people. Now, again, I'll highlight that you play a role within a system. You've got to look to the end result that system is designed to give, and sometimes that'll be your role will be to argue for someone. Something that you don't believe, but you've got to trust the system.
It is tough because a lot of us have a lot of plates that we spin in our jobs, much like what you're saying as an attorney. But you don't have to hold on to the plate that protects your devices, like your computers and your cell phones. Save4Net is designed to protect all your devices at home and at work, so we can all focus on the mission that God has given us to do, while they keep out the bad guys. Their VPN, virus protection, and internet filters work without slowing you down. Check out save4net.com and let them know that you listen to I Work for Him.
Bob, I want to close out the show doing some stories, telling us some stories. There's all different kinds of attorneys with many types of specialties, from defending criminals to negotiating divorces to facilitating business deals and so much more. International law and U.S. law. Give us a story of how you were able to reflect the character of Christ in one of those settings.
Well, thanks, Jim. I remember one time, lawyers that do divorce and family law work have to wrestle with when when they're going to handle a divorce, what their relationship will be with clients. I've had friends who are Christian attorneys, and they say, in a setting like that, they have enormous opportunities for witness and ministry when people typically are at the very bottom of their lives. As I wrestled with it, it seemed to me there were some circumstances where I could work to get a divorce for someone, and some where I could not. Well, I had a lady come in. She was an older lady, and she said that she had decided to divorce her husband. And so I asked her to, tell me a little bit about her background, her husband's background. It became obvious that they were probably both Christians. I mean, she described themselves as going to a Baptist church, etc. I mean, the pointers were toward her being a Christian, and so I said, well, I could refer her to another attorney who could handle that, but I'd made a commitment to not pursue divorce under some circumstances, and her shoulders dropped. She said, I've been thinking about getting a divorce from my husband for 30 years. I finally got the courage to go to an attorney and get my divorce. And I picked you out of the phone book, and I probably got the only lawyer in Charlottesville who won't get me my divorce. And she leaned over and she pulled a Bible out of her purse, and she said, "You tell me, Mr. Cochran, where does it say in here that I can't get my divorce?" And I leaned over, pulled the drawer out, pulled the Bible out of my desk, and we kind of walked through the scriptures. And by the end, you could tell she was, that what I'd said had made an impact. So I asked if I could, call her pastor, or try and get her and her husband together with them, maybe get a little counseling. And she said sure. So, an example where I think a lot of attorneys would say, my faith doesn't have anything to do with this, but if you're if you're going to follow Christ, sometimes you have to resist those inclinations.
What a great example.
That's a great story. Perfect story.
Yeah, it is.
So speak to the Christ-following attorneys and their clients that are out there listening today. Encourage them that being a servant lawyer, helping people in possibly the worst times of their lives, is in fact not only possible, it's expected. Talk to people about the general attitude that you present in your book, because there's a lot of attorneys out there that have never been taught that perspective. And that's why I'm hoping you get a chance to mentor and disciple thousands before the Lord takes you home. But speak encouragement to them today.
Well, I will put in a little plug for my book. I developed these themes that we've been talking about a lot in the book, both for business lawyers, litigators, the lawyer as counselor, the lawyer who's in court, lawyers who serve poor people, and law students. I talk about the moral challenges of law practice and of law school. But I would say be encouraged. I don't think there's any other profession that gives you more opportunity to serve other people, whether that's the individual client who's across the desk from you, or the system generally. I mean, people make light of lawyers, but you go to a country where there's not the rule of law, or where law is disregarded, where you don't have lawyers who are encouraging people to comply with the law. You're likely to hug the first lawyer you see when you get back to this country. We tend to take law and lawyers for granted, but if they're not around, and we can't rely on people's word and documents and safety. I mean, a lot of those things, lawyers are there and help to protect us.
That's awesome. I just had a thought. if we have lawyers in our lives, they're probably hard to buy gifts for. And so I just think that your book, The Servant Lawyer, Facing the Challenges of Christian Faith in Everyday Law Practice, would be a great gift. You know, all of us probably know somebody who's going to law school or getting, they're going to go there after they get their bachelor's, or they're have a practice, or they're, whatever their role might be, that you could get this book for them to encourage them through the chapters of this book regarding the industry that they are in, and give them that opportunity to kind of make some new, maybe reinforce or make some new decisions about how they view their work, and being the servant lawyer that they've been created to be. So I just think that would be a great gift idea. And, Christmas will be here before you know it.
Right. Hey, that's right. So, Bob, I want to just thank you for your words about the fact that you do have so many ministry opportunities, because when a potential client walks in your door, they are possibly at the lowest point in their life. And that's where most attorneys greet their clients, at a very low point. Not always, because sometimes it's business deals and things like that, but you're often dealing with people that are under an extraordinary amount of stress, and that is the greatest open door for being Jesus to those neighbors. Bob Cochran, thanks for bringing your book to I Work for Him today. Thanks for the discipleship method, the paradigm shifting information that you've got in your book, for looking at law practice as truly a kingdom function and an incredible ministry opportunity. Bob Cochran, thanks for being on I Work for Him today.
And thank you.
You've been listening to I Work for Him with your host, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. We're Christ followers. Our workplace, it's our mission field. But ultimately, I work for Him. This episode of I Work for Him is sponsored by SaferNet.com, PatriotMobile.com/I Work for Him, and the U.S. Christian Chamber 2026 Expo, found online at SWC2026.com, code I Work for Him.
Thanks for listening to the I Work for Him podcast with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. Please visit iworkforhim.com to learn more about connecting your faith and work, to join the I Work for Him Nation, and to subscribe to our weekly newsletter. While you're there, check out the Tapestry database, a growing directory of faith and work organizations. You can also follow us on social media at I Work for Him to stay up to date and meet our guests. If today's message spoke to you, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. Your review will launch more workplace missionaries across America. That's I Work for Him, and online at iworkforhim.com. I work, the number 4, him.com.